The African Youngster by Ronald Ssemyalo. Chapter 1. Catching a glance at what others have passed through to be where they are, I cannot say that I have a successful story to tell. However, when a queue of failures emerges, I cannot file up. So where do I fall? Many of growing Africans are like me, but will never gather the guts to pen their experiences to the rest of the world. Maybe they feel of less worth, but who has the yardstick for this? I believe no one, and no one has the right to judge anyone. I am proud son of the land with positive beliefs about my society. When I say that I have no proof about my birth, someone may bump in with claims that I was born at Kasanaluwelo from a government hospital. However, when it comes to the day, month, and year, many will stammer, for vivid evidence may not show up because of the reasons known to a few. I cannot dismiss my place of birth because the verbal proof is there from my grandfather, who pen-named me Luwelo during my infancy to depict where I was born. I came to confirm this of late when I met my father, who partially narrated the story, for he doubted the time of birth. This only person everyone believes to have the correct information is not giving it, and the other one is normal. I have never taken the responsibility to find out why mom was at her parents' home that month, but according to the friends and relatives who were close to her, lament that I was crawling. The two had gone to attend to one of the relatives' weddings at night. Greater massacre in Nkoni. Everything moved on very well with her little sister Justine N until the taxi dropped them across the road. She had carried me for quite some good time, then requested the sister to get me, for she had a short call from nature. 2-3 cars passed the veil she had flown in the air. Tears followed. She had gone to the place where people walk on their backs like boats. Grandma one day lamented, "The body of my daughter, Virgo, your mom, lay in the sitting room. She had nothing on her that showed she had died of a motor accident. She looked more beautiful than ever. She had put on some weight. Oh no, Ville's death was not natural, but we put everything in the hands of God. He has the final word." I still wonder how you grew so dark, yet you resembled her very much. You were the most beautiful at birth. Many people thought you were a girl. Anyway, no man shall ever deny you. Grow up, study hard, get an office job, marry a working woman such that you develop each other. Did I disappoint her? Oh, gone are the days when I had all the time to talk with her on the veranda of the middle house at dusk. Her stories were passionate. She always repeated herself, and the tale about my late mother and infancy became an everyday song for whoever visited us would hear about it. Guess what? There was no day I missed being with or seeing any of my real parents. I think I was contented with the treatment at home. Granny would say, "Before Billy left, you always cried at night like frogs." During the season of heavy rains, however, when she passed on, you never ever bent your lips. I wonder how you got to know that she had gone. Since then, I took care of you. We fed you on cow's milk. Those were the old days. Recently, when we went to renovate her grave, Granny mentioned that she used to breastfeed me once in a while. The issue of breastfeeding children by nanny mothers existed, and some of my aunties, Jacent in particular, benefited. She used to go to her uncle's wife in the neighborhood for this nutritious meal whenever her mom was away. Granny was ever busy in the garden since she had a very big family to handle. This grabbed much of her time she would have given to her last-born. Guess what? Other mothers, in quotes, were always there to support. I have to confess that I grew up in an extended family made up of our grandfather, Matia Murumba, grandmother, Sarah Nanzili, their children, grandchildren, relatives, and friends. They had given birth to 12 children, and my mother was the ninth. Chapter 2. This was the ancestral home of my maternal side. Whoever had nowhere to go could seek for refuge from here. Our grandfather had inherited it from his father, our great-grandfather, who also got it from his father. The chain was like that since time immemorial. It was known that inheritance was patrilineal in nature. Daughters were not allowed to inherit their fathers or uncles, and still they could not inherit their mothers, neither maternal aunties, but they could take over the rights of their paternal aunties. In addition to the above, the eldest son of the family was supposed to take over from his father unless otherwise, for example, if the late had specified someone in his will. If the deceased never had children, the brother or the brother's son would take over, and to make things clear, no one had a right to inherit more than once. For example, if you were the eldest son in the family and you inherit your uncle, then after your father dies, your brother takes over, not you. That is how our grandfather came to have such 4 acres of land in Masaka at a village called Chabakuza. This home is located right opposite the Catholic parish and St. Charles Luanga Chabakuza Primary School. Its compound is as big as a football pitch with 4 houses facing the road. At the time of our childhood, this home had over 35 households living happily, for when it came to feeding, our grannies did the best. Our grandfather was a famous motor vehicle mechanic operating in over 5 districts neighboring Masaka. He could gather reasonable money to cater for his family very well. However, I have to confess that Mzee Matia was a very tough man. He never joked with children. A lot was said about Granny Matia, but there is a testimony from me. However, many say that I was one of the most liked children at home for reasons I cannot figure out. This seemed to be unfair. I was around 3 years old and had escorted Granny to the garden. On coming back, he gave me a tomato, with which I continued to play when we reached home. Unfortunately, here came an old girl of 17 and jokingly grabbed it from me. Oh no, I screamed loudly that Granny came running to find out what had happened. She was beaten like an opposition politician. Mzee beat her so hard that tears rolled my cheeks. He had a wire he used to carry car engines. This was his whip. Granny was a tough man indeed. One day I fell sick and hesitated to take a drugs. I believe I was 2 years old. He gave me a thunderous slap that the plasmodia evaporated. Did I feel sick any further? I cannot guess. The way he raised the children was sincerely merciless, just like any other father of that time. The 10th child, Uncle Ndaula, was forced to narrate to us a story about his father, Mattia. He said, Papa could wake you up at 5 a.m. to dig and keep you there till 7:45 a.m., just 5 minutes to class time. It was hard to use this period to prepare and reach school before 8 a.m. Given the school existed opposite, you could see whatever transpired. There the old man would stand along the road and shout to alert the teacher on duty about your arrival. The teacher could beat you there and then as the father complimented that you were playing around the bush trying to dodge. That was our Mzee. When an adult found you in wrong, they would punish you there and then, and if you tried to refuse, he would beat you up and after take you to your father for more beating. I cannot forget the day I cracked a joke about a certain class celebrity before the girls he liked. I was studying from Kijabwemi Secondary School under the Church of Uganda. This giant waited for me. Then, when we reached the stream after school, his colleagues were there. On our way with the fellows who were as short as I was, the tall ones attacked us. Girls were there. The guy slapped me at once and grabbed my neck. There was a gentleman driving a brand new Porsche car of the time, probably BMW, blue color. He saw the bully hitting and parked across the road to come and rescue. Given my skill with metals and father's endless sweeps, the body never felt anything. There, I handed over the bag to a friend and attacked the giant. I gave him one punch and scattered 2 teeth. His friends tried to intervene, but the calm man checked them. He drove us back to school and narrated how it was. That was the only day I was lucky. The giant had nothing to say, for he was the first to attack. I stopped counting at 123. Many of our age were monsters. There, this man gave us a lift to our home. Mzee was there jazzing with colleagues. The moment the man mentioned that I had fought, I cannot remember even up to now how I reached the ground. Father jumped on me like a puma and pummeled his head, asking me to remind him of the earlier warnings. By the time the gentleman explained that the issue had been handled by the school, I was already feeling my eyes, jaws, and neck. Father was a man and a half. I must admit that Mzee was at times right, because if he never used an iron hand, we would have become wolves, because our era was for tough and rough people. We were the true definition of the original unruly, from the original blood. Our bodies were very strong, that walking 20 miles barefooted was nothing. We could go hunting without sandals, and if a game passed by you, countless sticks would eat you up. Fighting was our thing. Me manipulating others' wrestle was as cheap as an adulterer. We could stage village fights whenever we got free time, and this groomed us into warriors who waged wars against neighboring villages. Our eldest brother Chabago was our hero, as if he had metals in his hands. He could put a full village down single-handedly. Guess what? He was the most calm at home. Tata almost killed him with wires. One evening, we went to attend a certain wedding at Kisoso village. Here our village boys had waged a battle the previous Christmas, and the boys of the land kept this at heart, waiting for revenge. The trouble came when our seventh brother Godfrey, who danced like Michael Jackson, showed up and conquered the dance floor. The rest were simply onlookers, for he had no match in massacre. To make matters worse, the village belle hugged him in appreciation of his overwhelming performance. The rest of us walked by his side and hooked up with the remaining girls. Brother Chavagu was somewhere seated taking his liquor. He had emptied around 17 bottles. He was not as good as us at dancing, and I don't think he liked girls. The bottle was his best friend. At this moment, he was surely drunk and he could hardly walk. It was approaching 11 p.m. when the gang of Kisoso boys surrounded us. These had big sticks from coffee trees. They had been waiting for this day to come. The Lord had given it to them. Before I knew it, Godfrey was down feeling his head. Girls could not wait for bells. They vanished in thin air and let the bullies teach us a lesson. I have to make it clear, our group had nothing to do with these boys, because if he had hurt them earlier, we would have come ready for the combat. It was another group that had harassed these guys. We were caught unaware. I tried to fight back, but it was useless. We were outnumbered. If I am to remember, we were 13 battling over 30 armed lads. There was no pleading but running away. That is when I felt the baton crossing my back. This was too much. I screamed loudly as I staggered to rest knees on the ground. There was no way out. I cannot recall the number of sticks that hit my belly and hands, because whenever I tried to protect the head, the belly would suffer. As he emptied his 19th bottle, he had the horde celebrating that Chavakuza was bleeding. There, he staggered to the scene and pushed one of them away. Eyes caught a glimpse of God's red head. He then grumbled with words that asked them to halt whatever they were doing. At his sight, I took the sign of the cross inside me. I knew he would save us. They were too many for him, but at least he would delay or create a diversion for us to slither away. Drunkard Chavagu was pushed away like a toothpick when his bottle broke and cut his wrist. This was a terrible mistake. This was declaration of war again against the whole village officially. With his piece of broken bottle, he cut whoever stood his way, asking them whether they knew the meaning of our village Chavakuza. He kicked one after the other while shouting Chavakuza. The sticks did not hurt him He was never normal when he drank. I still believe that he was always possessed. He beat the Soso boys and assembled them in the middle of the road. Then he forced them to praise our village. That is when we crowned him the Lion of Chavakoza. He was our protector. The following morning, the parents of these boys filed up at our home. It was obvious that father was to kill us. He drove his tractor across the courtyard and picked a wire that he used to tie us like a goat being off-skinned. We knew the game was over. Mzee got an iron bar and hit wherever he wanted. Mom cried and ran to the banana plantation to hide. The parents of the beaten boys pleaded for mercy, but the man could not listen. He beat us for 2 solid hours until our grandmother, her mother, called his first name, Mattia. He stopped and went to his room. We never walked for a full week. The 2 elder brothers were sent to Sembabule district to start new life, for they had grown up and the village could not manage them. They established farms there and started families. I had to escape from home to Kampala to start new life as well. Many followed and Mzee remained with grandchildren. By the time you were born, father had grown weak. Chapter 3. My uncle Ndaula JB had many stories to tell always, and listening to him was my role. He was ever cheerful, open-minded and feasted. He always shared with others and lifted whoever needed to see the sun. 1998 put a mark on our lives. The old Mzee Jaja passed on. I still remember every moment. He had gone to the garden to spray the vegetables. Then he passed by the elephant grass yard. Oh, his back began aching. Days passed. He could not leave his room, and the family doctor recommended further treatment to the Masakari Far Hospital. However, the family members preferred Kitovu given its special services. There was nothing to change. He was around 79. He was around 77. The great lion had fallen. We remained with one sole provider, our grandmother, Sarah. Her major source of income was small-scale farming, where she reared few swine and grew bananas. This would not fully finance us smoothly. I still ask myself how she managed to raise us, for we were many studying, for she never stomached a school dropout. That was the year I joined school. I remember when the elder children kept on leaving me home and demanded enrollment. Granny insisted that I was still young, but there was nothing that deterred me from joining, for I knew every word necessary to aid me learn. One day, I dressed up and followed after the elders to the road. These called Grant to pick me, and the war never halted. This time, I was the youngest at home. She finally gave in and put on gomes, the traditional attire for most of Ugandan tribes. There, we stormed the head teacher's office of the time, Mr. Kayondo, who cheerfully welcomed us, for he knew Granny very well, since most of her children had passed in his hands, and to make matters simpler, he was a son of the village, a family friend in sum total. He laughed loudly at my sight, claiming that I was too young to start school. Before I forget, the other reason that pushed me to yearn for school was the fact that nursery learners were given pancakes and yellow bananas during breakfast. Some of my relatives had tipped me about it, so it was my turn to enjoy the snacks. The fact remained that I was still young, for I failed the interview. Did I? The head teacher asked me to use my right hand to touch the left ear by passing the hand on top of the head. Yes, I did my best, but could not pay heed to his advice of waiting for yet another year at home. Granny walked towards the door as I figured out what to do. The headmaster continued with his official duties as I shouted at Granny that I had touched the ear. Both looked at me with doubt and asked me to repeat. I passed the hand behind the head and touched the ear with ease, then jumped around the entire office room that I had made it. Mr. Kayondo simply shook his head in disbelief while shrugging his shoulders as Granny looked on. Headmaster: "What's your name?" "I, Ssemyalo Ronald." "Headmaster: You are very bright. Come tomorrow and study." Chapter 4. Granny and I could not believe this, but it had happened. That's how I started schooling. Did I complete a term or a month? I cannot clearly tell, for that was the time grandfather died. One of my aunties took me to her home there down village. She was a single mother with 7 children, for the husband was working in Rwanda. There existed fresh opportunities for mechanics then after the 1994 genocide. He was harvesting money, and at times he would send home. I can't tell what happened, but aid ceased coming 1 month after my arrival. She had taken us to a private school called Bright Academy. However, the name later changed to Bright Africa. The tragedy came when I was put in primary 1, yet I was supposed to be in a nursery or baby class. Let me put this clear. The legal age of going to school was 5 years then. I think I had not made it. I remember one thing from this school: speaking English. Everyone spoke English language apart from my auntie's daughter Flora and I. I think I was put in the same class with her since we came from the same home. Otherwise, I was supposed to be below her, for she had joined the previous year and a bit older than me. There was thorough beating in this school. Unlike the rest of the people who grew up from home, I was the only one with immeasurable favor. They never beat me. The reason was that I used collapse. I cannot deny that, for people could just tell me what had happened the following day. I cannot tell why it happened to me, but the few scenarios I remember were: the first time we went to the garden to gather fruits and ran to the guava tree. I was very fast at running, and no one could beat me here. It was obvious that I began climbing before the rest. By the time other children reached, I was making the 3rd step. Our elder cousin Prosi warned that I was not supposed to climb trees, for if I fell, they would be punished. There was a boy who pulled me down, and I got to understand the rest when I was in bed. The other day came when the other cousin was mopping the house. My age mates kept on sliding around that room, but when I tried out, there was the way I lost control and fell. I had the natural fear of everything scary. I still aspire to trace its origin, and I believe one day I will find out the answer. Lastly, we had to slope to the well for water. Our village, like I mentioned earlier, that many relatives' homes surrounded us, we moved in a group, be it collecting firewood from the forest or playing. Everyone would be called upon to join. We were around 16 children from different homes racing to the well. As usual, running was my thing. None could dare me. There we sloped to the valley, shouting, enjoying every bit of exercise. Little did I know that two of the boys had hidden near the sugarcane plantation. We skipped to the well only to be scared by these kids. My brake pad never worked given the terrific speed I used. In water, I found myself dead as they shouted. It took us many hours. They had to wait for me to regain consciousness as clothes dried up. The entire village knew about my condition, and no one dared to hit me, for they feared to be the reason for my death. This time round, no one was there to tell teachers of this school about me. Besides, I was very quiet and fearful. The first day at this school, the madam beat me. I never collapsed, but it was too painful for life. Besides, I never understood anything, for I was always beaten. There was this friend called Ndaula, whose book I used to copy and paste to survive the sticks, and when the teacher learned of it, she almost killed me. My auntie was lovely, but a bit quarrelsome. She was not like my grandma. I feared her. I feared going to school more. The only escape route was not going at all. We could leave home and hide around the nearby bush, seek for hidden jackfruits, eat and wait for the time to tell. It never took long. 1 p.m. was always near. When children of other schools passed, we knew it was time to go home. We did this for weeks until one guy who knew me very well saw me. He was called Franca, a son of the choir master of our church. Everyone knew. He caught me by the hand and dragged me back home. This time, not my auntie's. I was very happy inside me, for I was going home, though afraid, for what I had done was so shameful. Uncle JB was there. He had come to see Granny and organized the ceremony to show the hair of grandfather to the public. When he was warned that beating me would make me collapse, the rich man never listened. I have to confess that he was the richest in our family. Everyone believed in whatever he said. He got a stick and gave me like 6 strokes of the cane. I cried the whole day, if I have not forgotten. This was a blessing in disguise, for I never went back to my auntie's home. That same year, I was taken to a nursery school a stone's throw from our home. It was called Aunt Betty Nursery School. This was the school that gave me the foundation I have. It was a small kindergarten with one teacher assisted by her children who were then in secondary school. Here, I never went to baby class. I was put in top class, and the following year, I was promoted to primary 1. Here, we learned handwriting and numbers. The exercise book would only be given to you after mastering the alphabet and numbers. Basically, we wrote on the floor. Miss Betty, Ruth Mbirontono, was very strict and tough but loving. She was the best teacher. She could turn stones into bread. She got me from nowhere to somewhere. She made me like studying. The 2 terms I studied top class changed me completely for better. It was not a surprise that my first term in primary 1, I was the first in class. Chapter 5. The known giant Nakato Reste was beaten. By the way, she was my relative from another grandfather, though she stayed with her mom at the other corner of the village. Boys were so happy because I had defeated the girl who had proven a paragon since baby class. It was not over for her. Reste never gave up. She revitalized and took over in second term. I was number 2. The battle for the better between Reste and I continued. We exchanged positions as people alleged that I left her win because she was my girlfriend. I cannot stop laughing when I recall this jazz. Boys at home would mock me when she appeared at home for a visit or when she passed to the shops, for they were after our home, telling me so and so is your girlfriend would bring serious problems. I would cry and report, it is not about me. Almost every growing child faces this. I was not exceptional. In primary 3, I topped 3 terms and I don't remember paying for school fees because one of my cousins, Gerard, had joined the school in nursery and our auntie could send his fees through me. It was 15,000 a term, Uganda shillings. And when I paid, Aunt Betty never asked any questions. Besides, she liked me so much. Our school initially stopped at primary 2, but our year it was extended to primary 3. However, how I wish she had put P4, we would have remained. My performance was already making her incredible sums of money because most of the relatives from the government school Chawakuza would go to her for coaching such that they perform the way I did, even though I was in a lower class than them. This school was fascinating. I enjoyed it so much. Madam had made me the class captain and later the school head prefect. Oh God, I was a big pot then. We could play our legs off. We had a lot of time here. There was my best friend I cannot forget, Kamyamatia. I just learned of late that we were related. He was the most stubborn learner of our time I have ever seen. Kamya one day saw a pupil from the other big government school going home and provoked the girl. He later beat her up and ran away. The following day, the girl reported and Madame summoned Kamya. This boy defied the teacher's order. This had never happened in our school. Madame dispatched the whole school to carry him to her. The boy ran following the path leading to his home, then climbed the nearby mango tree and rested there. Since he was my best friend, I never chased after him. Besides, he would defend me during hot jokes, for I was never good at them. As the entire school followed, shouting, Kamya was watching them pass like Manchester United defenders after seeing Gabriel Jesus with the ball. There I sloped to find out about the quest. The ninja called me with ease and threatened to change school. I could not allow this to happen as we planned to find a way of surviving the punishment. He then took another direction that led him home. A fortnight later, Kamya showed up. Madame had forgotten about the issue, but there was another boy called Lawrence. This was our neighbor at home. He had come from the government school with all the zeal and pride to be number 1. Lawrence disregarded the class's favorite and wanted to take over. He was very bright, I have to confess, and our school sharpened him further. When it came to football, Lawrence wanted to be a star just like any other person, but he used to brag about it. In simple terms, he was aggressive, which many never liked. He was a bit taller and more energetic than us. There, this religious boy who always served at the altar in the church with his head above the shoulders for I, too, recognized his achievements and fame showed up. Kamya waited for the day to come to put him down. However much I preferred remaining number one at school, I did it silently. I never fought against anyone. Pulling someone down was never my goal. Lawrence had spearheaded the movement that ran after Kamya the other day, and Kamya kept this at heart. He was like Emperor Napoleon III when he lamented to the Frenchmen after the emperor's loss and defeat in the famous Franco-Prussian War of 1870-1871. That always think about it, but never talk about it. Time had come. There was a used contraceptive in the garden next to the boundary of our school. One of the students started playing with it until Lawrence advised him to throw it away, for one of the elders might find us. Kamya framed Lawrence that he said Miss Betty and her husband had used it. He was beaten for no reason. That was Kamya. I felt bad because Lawrence was my friend as well. Chapter 6. We started fearing Kamya. He could build scenarios, lie like nothing. He was too complicated at his age. No one won him at cracking jokes and making fun of others. His time had come. Dodging classes and deceive he was sick was his hobby. This time he abused the teacher's assistant and was suspended from school for a full week. Upon returning, Madame sent her for school fees balance. This boy picked money from his father, who operated a butcher, and took himself to the government school, St. Charles Lwanga Kyakuza Primary School, without the knowledge of his parents. On hearing about his move, we crowned him Man of the Year. Life at Aunt Betty Nursery School moved on smoothly without Kamya. As usual, we had no bell, and even if it was there was no one to ring it. Madame would use her window to shout at us to enter, and if she forgot, we would play the whole day. What a school! We enjoyed it to the fullest. We could leave in the evening singing like nothing, and in case she got busy with another class, since the teachers were few, we could read the charts. When tired, we could ask her to let us sing. There, we could sing like nothing. Afternoon lessons were the most fascinating. She was a typical housewife who had to meet the house chores, like cooking. Since most of the learning took place during morning hours, she used to do her business later. This was the time we went back from home, since she never prepared us any meals. We had to carry our breakfast and lunch, and for those who stayed near, running home for lunch was the order of the day. I never carried food to school. Granny never supported it, reasoning that we could serve the whole of it to others. Besides, I was a bit shy, thinking the kids would laugh at my food. One day, one of my aunties bought me a container to carry food. I waited till we prepared my favorite dish of the time, rice. I ate sparingly and finally packed my food. Reaching break time, I failed to pick it. The rest got theirs, and surprisingly I begged them, yet my food was better than what many had. Days passed. The container remained in the classroom until the term closed, and I picked it. I never carried food again. Our school was not nice, but had the best standard in the locality. We studied with children from rich families. These could share with us fresh meals, for maids were there to carry for them to school. The school was so good in teaching the native language Luganda, and this helped us learn English language spellings with ease. Years passed. Antibet Nursery School ceased to exist. Family issues dragged it down. It helped many of us and shaped our future academically. How I wish that school existed today. My children would have gone there. Long live Madame Ruth Mbilontono, commonly known as Miss Betty. May the good Lord bless you. The last joke from Okamia that gives me another reason to miss him was at the end of term 2. We were 9 in primary 3. This number was very small, so the administration inflated the number to 18. One of the boys, Patrick, was the last. We called him Pat. He was the 13th. Upon seeing his position on our way home, Kamia began singing that Pat became the last in class and exceeded limits, thus secured the last position in for the following terms. We went singing that Pat had exceeded the last position. Chapter 7. Life at home kept on changing. We were growing. One of our uncles had settled on the same piece of land with us and established a permanent home right next to ours. I was in the same age with his children. Uncle Sevu had carried on his father's craft, though on a small scale, for he concentrated on repairing bicycles, buying and selling old vehicles. Upon selling one of his plots from Zimbabwe district, Uncle would buy an outdated car at a very low price, then concentrate on it for about 3 months till it worked. We would fight to be on the testing crew, such that if the engine finally started, we would somersault into it. There was no room for waiting for those who had pushed it. Uncle Seb and his cars made our life fascinating. He one day bought a 10th hand Nissan Datsun truck, 1,200, if not 11th. He spent 5 months struggling with the vehicle until it spoke vroom. We were all as excited as monkeys that had caught a glimpse of yellow bananas. It was self-explanatory. We were to enjoy the drive. Those left behind could not get lost, for its smoke could monger the rumor everywhere. The other thing was the noise. Oh, it was a racing car, yet competed with a chameleon, especially on a hilly road. Days passed. There a job surfaced. He was to carry bricks from the producer to the construction site that was about 1 kilometer away. Since the courtyard cheered numerous children, labor was almost free. He tried to stop us, claiming bricks were not for the weak, thus identified the Masichula ones. It was in glass I was eliminated, including other 7 boys. His son Moses never missed because he was good at operating the jack brake and was a bit more technical than us. The other reason is that the most important, he was his son. He called him Moses. He had other sons at our home from another woman, but Moses seemed his favorite. The boy was good at automobiles because at the age of 18, he would ride, and if I am not mistaken, by 10 Moses drove. Me riding a bicycle, I was 12. I was so quiet, especially at home. My words were minimal and calculated. In simple terms, I was reserved. The other reason that made me take long to learn these machines was my loyalty. I always followed orders. None learned smoothly. They broke laws and did it. Moses could pick up a client's motorcycle and practice as we watched and praised his bravery. The same applied to Kagwa. This was our senior. He was around 10 years older than us, but everyone at home liked and admired him. He taught us many things. Kagwa was our cousin. His late father was our uncle, a brother to Uncle Sev. He stayed with his mom a stone's throw from the ancestral home, where he spent most of his time. He only went home to sleep. This was Uncle Sev's assistant since he knew almost everything we had ever thought. He was ever on Uncle's team. Did Kagwa do housework at home? I will not lie like the rest of us. Boys, girls did so. Hours later, Uncle, Mose, Kagwa, and other village boys were not coming back. Friends and I pulled out our banana fiber ball that I made and played. Soccer was my hobby as I grew up and could dribble after everyone with ease. This left leg did everything at the expense of the opponents who used it right. Gathering 6 players on one side was a simple challenge because the moment I got the ball, goal had to be counted. I was so skilled here, for my speed beat countless in seconds. We played different competitions. We had a 2-player game divided in 2 formats, one called single knock. This involved one player standing on one side of the goal poles and secondly on the other side. These could load their best shots at each other, however, each had one chance. You kick once, then the next kick is for the opponent. There was no excuse to an extent that an accidental knock on the ball could shift the chance to the opponent, hence it was named knock chikona. The other one was called extend sembeza. Each player had 2 chances. The moment the opponent made his first attempt, you were supposed to make your first move by extending the ball towards your opponent as long as it never reached him, then shoot. He was free to use hands to capture the ball by extending it towards your goal, then scores before you reach. I preferred this to the former since my legs lacked reasonable energy. Chapter 8. Chapter 8. Towards lunch, Kagwa appeared carrying an empty fuel jerrycan with him. Oh, the Lord had remembered us. The car had stuck somewhere a few meters to the construction site. They did their best until the engine called for more petrol. Now that Kagwa was walking to the fuel pump, to hell with football. We forced ourselves to escort him to the trading center, and it was human to let us follow him to the stuck pickup. Reaching there, the gigantic boys had left Uncle. At our sight, he gleefully shook his head in disapproval of our coming, although deep inside him, he welcomed us. More trials took place, however, we were wasting time. Hours passed. Uncle ran out of options, yet he had to deliver the bricks. He requested us to throw them to the side. Oh God, the energetic ones made a cute file, then he threw towards the other. The weak ones carried one by one to the destination. It was tiresome. Mind you, we had not taken lunch. On top of that, my teeth were not as such strong to grind the sugar canes Uncle purchased. Boys were happy this afternoon, me as well. The exercise took around 4 solid hours since we were few. By 6 p.m., the car finally ignited. Wow! You cannot imagine the excitement that paraded our faces. We jumped up and down celebrating the mercy of God. We could not imagine pushing it home, for we always did so. Uncle's cars never stayed in strange lands. There, we jumped on it and shouted as usual. He drove us to the boss's home for payment, then headed home. It was clear we had to be paid for hard work. This time, there was no excuse because he had received the money in front of us. Did we need much money? I swear, to me, it was not about money, just like the rest of my age mates. We simply yearned for acceptance. We wanted Uncle to let us be with him, work and walk alongside him, nothing much. There, Mose was given 500 Uganda shillings to sort us. The way we ran to the shop, oh, I remember getting 50 shillings and 2 pancakes. There I ran home to find Granny sitting on the veranda talking with friends. She was already bitter for getting lost for that long, but I did not care. I showed her my money, then asked her to keep it safely. She couldn't quarrel this time, for I never let her speak when I immediately gave her 1 pancake and shared the remainder with Prosy, who had taken care of the goats in my absence. There, I knelt down to greet the elders, who called me husband in return. It was on this day that I learned that boys do not need to kneel while greeting. It's for ladies. When the lantern was brought, laughter almost killed them because I looked like a monkey. The dust had covered the entire face, so dirty but happy. It was very hard to win liquid cash from Uncle Save. On a good day, he could buy 10 pancakes of 100 Uganda shillings, then tell Kagwa to sort you. The miracle had happened to our granny's son. He was such a tall, calm man with very few words. His fists were a bit closed, but we had no problem with him because he never confronted anyone. His anger would emerge when you beat his son Mose. Here, even the wife would explain why she punished the boy. This made him permissive and acted like a crown prince, bragging and starting conflicts because his guardian angel was there. Few people liked him, and I confess that we often fought. Chapter 9. Chapter 9. Fighting was not allowed, and culprits could receive their rewards majorly from Moses' mom. She never wanted wrangles. Moses was the kind of a boy you could never avoid. He would provoke you till the duel battled. Did he have the energy? Maybe he had. However, I believe he was so much younger than me, very fat and looked gigantic, which made him pounce at whoever he found. He was no match for me. His dad protected him so much and left him to attack and confront us in whatever way possible in front of Uncle. But the moment he left or went to work somewhere, we could beat the boy and run for soccer. He was not good at the game, although he was the one available. Once in a while, he would accompany us to the pitch, which was right opposite our home after the church. As I grew, the right hand of our home harbored a residence for another grandfather, and there lived a boy called Nsubuga. This was my childhood best friend. He was a bit older, taller, and more energetic than me. This was the only person I never wished to dare. He used to slop to the trading center and watch movies, then come and narrate to us. He learned kicking styles, and no one of our age managed him. He rarely fought, but when angered, Subuga would first cry, then beat you up till you cry or run away. The life between Nsubuga and I was very sweet. He could take me to the cinema hall, then pay for translated movies of KK Jingo, Ivan MC, and others. From there, the granny's boy would be taken to the gardens to harvest jackfruits. Our time of growing was very sweet, for the countryside favored our survival. Almost everyone around the village had a relationship with us. It only required greeting them and climb their trees for mangoes, passion fruits, avocado, and others. For avocado, the great-grandpa had finished it because he left 24 tree species of this fruit. Paul was nominated in Nsubuga's home. He was my cousin in simple terms. However, in our tradition, he was supposed to be my brother. I don't think I taught him anything because I was very silent. At times, I wanted to talk during conversations, but I failed since every time we had an argument with the rest of the arguments, my opinion would be judged negatively, and whenever I tried to correct them, many would curse me that I was bright. That was why I always underlooked them. Some would ask if I could write on water. Many called me a wiseacre, a thing that hurt me. This helped me, however. I lived a simple and down-to-earth life at home for many years. Did Nsubuga judge me? I don't think so. We only talked about soccer, movies, then music, which he told me about every now and then. He knew all the musicians of the time and discussed one by one. My major contribution to arguments was to make local balls, which I modified by cutting the tattered clothes of Granny and make one of its caliber. They were nice balls we played for maths. With the time, my sojourns to Kampala intensified, and I used to spend most of the holidays there. This sharpened me so much that I